All right, guys, today we're going to install these Megan Racing tow arms on the M340. You can see the stock one right here. It's hollow in there, so these are kind of prone to flex. I'm installing these just to stiffen up the rear chassis a little bit. I'm not going for any crazy suspension, or alignment specs or anything like that. I just want it to be solid. I can kind of show you here. These guys really do flex a lot. You can hopefully see as I put a screwdriver in there and twist, it's flexing a lot. A little bit of it is the bushing, but a lot of it is the actual, metal brace itself, this arm, being hollow and just kind of a U shape. I mean, I can get a good 10-15 degrees flex out of that, whereas the Megan Racing poly bushings, so you're not going to have near as much flex there, and steel alloy on the actual arm itself with the poly bushings. So I'm not going to be able to move that a tiny little bit at all. It's going to be solid as can be. So let's go ahead and get to installing them on the car. All right, first things first, since I've got the passenger side off, I'm actually going to line it up and just make sure my bolt holes line up so my length is close as it can get before I go throw it on the car. I'll have to make some final adjustments, but I'm just going to try and line these bolt holes up as close as I can, get my length correct, so it'll be pretty close to accurate where it needs to be. And turns out I need to lengthen this end just a little bit, or lengthen the total of it just a tiny bit. So I'm gonna unfasten this collar nut. All right, now that I loosen the collar nut on the trailing arm here, you can see it just freely spins. You basically just gotta screw it in or out until it lines up with your other bolt holes right here from your stock arm. And then we're actually gonna leave this end loose, and this end is all fastened up. You'll see why when we get that on the car, in case we have to do any final adjustments, anything like that, to line the bolt up on the wheel side, the hub side. It's good to have this loose. So ready to install. All right, so wheel is off, so we can get access to the bolt on the hub side there. Next step is we just got to take off this plastic tray right here so we can get access to everything we need. And it's just 4 10mm nuts that pops this thing off. All right, and one thing you're gonna wanna do before you take anything off is mark your eccentric nut right there. Eccentric nut just to mark where your stock suspension is. That nut needs to go back in the same spot, or the collar itself. Mark a spot on the chassis, like I did below here, and a spot on the actual eccentric collar right there. So you know exactly how that's supposed to go back on, and just keep your factory alignment as close as you can. And next we just got a 3/4 inch bolt right there, nut right there to take off. And this is, I believe, a 21mm, and it just threads straight into the knuckle behind it. I can't quite get an impact gun on this guy, so I just gotta use a 1/2 inch. Nuts off, got our washer off, and then this guy pulls out. go. And for that one, and yes, it is a 21. Nice long bolt, makes it a lot of fun. Ooh. There's that dinky little thing. All right, one thing I totally goofed on is I made that mark on the wrong bolt, the wrong washer. Luckily, you have a pretty good idea of where the washer was in there. And I'll just take some camera measurements so I can get it close, but whoopsie. All right, easiest way to put this in is our fastened end right here. Just gonna go up here first. Slides up in there. You can bend it around. Just get it loosely lined up on the bottom here. We'll go ahead and throw our eccentric bolt in and get that lined up. Okay. There we go. I'll get this close to where it was. Oops. You can see how that will only, the washer will only fit over there in one way to go around those grooves on the bolt. You can rotate the bolt. See how these eccentric bolts work to move your trailing arm in or out to adjust your camber there. And I'd say right about there. Okay. I'm just going to start that one there. We'll move over to this one. Okay, so our arm, see if that threads in. Might be just a tiny bit long. Yeah. Okay, so if I go ahead one turn that way, that'll shorten it up just a tiny bit. This bolt can be hard to get started. That's why you leave this loose and make sure, you know, you can twist this and make sure to get it at the exact right angle to start your threads there. It's a little bit stubborn. All right, so I've got this end threaded in as much by hand as I can. I know it went in there nice and straight, didn't get cross-threaded. So I can go ahead and get this guy most of the way tight. Okay, that's just barely hand tight. And one thing that made it easy to get this started and threaded in is that I left this end loose too, so it could kind of shift around just a little bit to get it to line up perfectly on this side. Other thing you're going to need once you start to really tighten down the inner bolt there, an E14 E-Torx, because the other side will start to spin and this is what you hold it with. So we'll throw that up there. Okay, that is all cinched up. This end is hand tight enough, so now we can go ahead and tighten our collar nut right here. That way nothing will move. Okay. And these both get torqued to 100 Newton meters, which is about 73 foot-pounds of torque. go. We are all bolted up, ready to go. Both sides. And then the last thing I have to do is put on the Casey Designs rear subframe brace that I had to pull out to get access to those bolts. Put on my wheels and good to go.